Hi, my name's Emery Poppleton, and I'm a student at the University of Calgary working with Dr. Cresswell on this project regarding the newly vulnerable Canadians. This is the first of 3 videos on Chapter 4 of this report. I will be talking about the characteristics of those impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. We gathered information about these people using a survey distributed Canada-wide during the summer of 2021. The format allowed us to hear about people's experiences directly. A total of 1,504 people replied. We observed that 38% of people reported having money troubles, and 11% of those noted that they were very much affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. This is shown by the arrow on the graph. Statistics Canada found a similar number of Canadians were living below Canada's official poverty line during 2021. This next graph shows how many people related those money troubles to the COVID-19 pandemic. 168 participants, or 8.5% of the total sample, reported that their financial situation was very much due to COVID-19, shown again by the arrow on the graph. This is the group we are referring to when we discuss the newly vulnerable. The impacts of COVID-19 and the related public health and economic measures have changed the picture of poverty in Canada. Taking a closer look at who has become newly vulnerable will allow us to tailor our responses to address their needs best. Generally, the 168 participants who were most affected by the pandemic were younger on average, more likely to be single or unmarried, and were also more likely to be women. Most of those who participated in the study were Canadians by birth. There were no or marginal differences between Canadians by birth, naturalized Canadian citizens, and permanent residents. However, citizens of other countries who were living in Canada reported increased financial hardships. Additionally, Indigenous peoples were more likely to experience money troubles. The small number of people in the study who self-identified as status Indian were 66% more likely to be newly vulnerable than not. Poverty also appeared to vary by region. From the data that was collected, those in the Peel-Hamilton area appeared to be most affected, while those from Huron-Stratford appeared to be least affected. The newly vulnerable had a wide variety of educational backgrounds. Overall, they were more likely to have completed a registered apprenticeship, a college CEGEP or other non-university certificate or diploma of 1 year or 2 years, a college CEGEP or other non-university certificate or diploma program of less than 3 years, another trade certificate or a diploma, or a doctoral degree. They were less likely to have completed a certificate or diploma from a program of more than 2 years, a university certificate or diploma below bachelor level, a university degree or at bachelor level, a university degree in medicine, dentistry, veterinary medicine, or optometry, or a master's degree. Moving on to housing, the newly vulnerable were in diverse living arrangements. The majority lived alone or were in a couple with 1 or more children under 18. 13% were living with their parents or guardians. The rest were either a couple with no children under 18 at home, were living with a roommate, were single parents with 1 or more children under 18 at home, or were in other living arrangements. When asked to rate how they expected to feel about their housing situation over the next 2 months, there was a decline in the average rating of affordability, which suggests that these respondents expected their financial difficulties to persist. The housing situation of people before COVID-19 who were very much affected by money troubles in July 2021 were as follows. Roughly half were renting their home, 35% owned a home, either through a mortgage or otherwise, 16% had a safe place to stay that they neither rented nor owned, and 1 person was homeless before the pandemic. These respondents' housing situations remained mostly the same, except for an increase of homelessness from 1 to 4 individuals. When asked to anticipate their housing situation in the next 2 months, the respective levels of homeownership, renting, and other arrangements remained the same. The main anticipated change was a reduction of homeownership from 35% to 30%, a change affecting approximately 10 participants. The elevation and persistence of homelessness and decrease in homeownership both suggest that respondents anticipated their financial difficulties continuing in beyond July 2021. We asked participants to rate features of their housing using scales that varied from a score of 1, unstable, to 7, stable. The 168 newly vulnerable participants reported lower average ratings than the non-newly vulnerable in regards to the following features: housing safety and security, stability, meeting of their needs, and affordability. When asked to rate their current housing situation along the same lines, the 168 respondents gave slightly lower scores on these 4 features. It is important to note that the averages of both groups were above 4, which represents the neutral middle point between the unstable and stable living conditions. The fact that the scores were only slightly lower during the pandemic may be because they do not remember being more satisfied with their housing situation prior to the pandemic, or it may be because income supports have alleviated some of the distress surrounding housing. When asked to rate how they expected to feel about their housing situation over the next 2 months, yet there was another decline in the average rating of affordability, which again suggests that these respondents expected their financial difficulties to persist. If you'd like to be a part of the interviews about this information, please feel free to reach out to the project coordinator at jimcresswell@ambrose.edu.